All right, welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today we're going on a bit of a journey, peeking into the future of health and wellness. Specifically, what's on the horizon for nutrition and fitness as we head into 2025.
Exactly. We're going to unpack all of them.
They've pulled together, well, really a ton of sources for this.
I did.
Everything from official guidelines to some really cutting-edge research and trends.
A lot to cover.
Yeah, but that's what we do here on the deep dive, right? Our goal, as always, is to help you sift through all that information and really pull out the gems. The truly important insights so you can stay ahead of the curve, understand what's coming, without feeling like you're drowning in a sea of information.
That's the goal. Consider this your, I guess, your cheat sheet or your insider's guide to what the experts are really talking about. What the latest research is saying is going to be key for your well-being, in the coming year.
I like that. Insider's guide. Okay, so let's jump right in. And I think a natural starting point is nutrition. And it all begins with the big picture, right? The dietary guidelines for Americans.
Makes sense.
Now, we've got the current version, the 2020 to 2025 guidelines.
Right.
But we also have a sneak peek at what's coming next.
We do. The 2025 to 2030 recommendations. Based on that, the scientific report of the 2025 Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, quite a mouthful.
Yeah, that is quite a mouthful.
It is.
But you've been digging through all this.
I have, yes.
So what are some of the core consistencies? Like what's staying the same?
Yeah.
And then where are we seeing some really notable shifts and things we should be paying attention to?
So I think what's interesting is how much of the foundational advice has really remained pretty consistent, both in the current guidelines and in these upcoming recommendations. There's a very strong emphasis on a diet that's rich in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean dairy, a variety of protein sources. And then on the flip side, limiting added sugars, saturated fats, those sorts of things. So the bedrock, like the very basic principles of healthy eating, they aren't really changing all that much,
Right, so no huge revolutions.
No, not really.
But you mentioned notable shifts. So where are we seeing the biggest evolution maybe in thinking?
I think one of the most significant developments is an intensified focus on plant-based protein. So the advisory committee, they're really advocating for us to reduce our consumption of red and processed meat and increase our intake of plant-based protein sources, things like legumes, nuts, seeds. Now, this isn't a call for everyone to go full vegan or vegetarian overnight, but it is an acknowledgement that there are considerable benefits, both for our own health and for the health of the planet, in incorporating more plant-based options into our diets.
Now, this shift towards plant-based protein, I mean, is it purely about sort of environmental concerns, or is there a health component to this as well?
Oh, there's definitely a very strong health component. There's a growing body of evidence linking higher intake of plant-based protein with a lower risk of developing things like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes. So it's not just about the planet, it's about our own personal well-being as well.
I see. So a lot of factors converging there. Now, you also mentioned that the new guidelines are tightening the recommendations around whole grains.
Yes, that's another big one. Right now, the guidelines say that at least half of our grain intake should be from whole grains.
Okay.
But the new report is suggesting that we should aim for mostly whole grains.
Mostly. Okay. So bigger portion of our diet.
Exactly, yeah. And they're also calling for much clearer definitions of what qualifies as a whole grain, So I think that's going to be a really big win for consumers. Yeah, when you're standing in the grocery store trying to figure out what to buy.
Trying to make sense of all the labels.
Exactly. It just makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all been there, standing in the aisle, staring at a loaf of bread, trying to decipher, is this the good stuff or not?
Yeah, is this really whole grain or is this marketing?
Right, exactly. So clarity is always good. Now, beyond these sort of overarching guidelines, we're also seeing a shift in, well, even the very definition of healthy on food labels.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Can you tell us about this updated nutrient content claim?
Yeah, so the FDA is making a pretty significant change here. The idea is to give consumers a much more reliable indicator of what healthy actually means on a food label. So the updated definition requires foods to contain a certain amount, meaningful amount of nutrients from at least one of the food groups that's recommended in the dietary guidelines.
Okay, so we're talking fruits, vegetables, dairy, whole grains, those kinds of things.
Exactly. And it also maintains the existing limits on saturated fat, sodium, added sugars.
Now, this was supposed to roll out, if I remember correctly, earlier this year. but there's been a bit of a delay.
That's right, yeah. The original implementation date was January 2025, but it's been pushed back just a little bit to April 28th.
Okay, so just around the corner.
Yeah, just around the corner. But the goal, the underlying purpose behind this update, that's staying the same. It's really about making it easier for you to quickly identify foods that can truly form the basis of a healthy dietary pattern.
Now, when you look at these new criteria, does anything really jump out at you? Like any maybe surprising inclusions or exclusions, things that caught your eye?
Well, one thing that's pretty interesting is that the revised definition actually allows foods like nuts and seeds, fatty fish like salmon, and even certain oils to qualify as healthy.
Okay.
Now, in the past, these foods, even though they're widely recognized for their health benefits, they sometimes didn't meet the older, stricter criteria.
Interesting.
So this really reflects a more nuanced, maybe more up-to-date understanding of the important role that healthy fats can play in our diets.
It's like the science is catching up with what a lot of people have kind of intuitively felt for a while, right?
Think so, yeah.
That things like avocados and nuts and certain oils are actually good for you.
Right, exactly.
It's not all just, low-fat everything.
Exactly. And it's also really encouraging to see that a lot of more affordable options, things like certain peanut butters, can produce, those can now potentially carry this healthy claim as well.
And that's huge.
It is, yeah.
Because it makes healthy eating more accessible, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not just for people who can afford to shop at, high-end grocery stores.
Right, exactly. Okay, so that's a really positive shift. Now, in both the current and the upcoming guidelines, there's also this emphasis on a lifespan approach to nutrition and a stronger focus on health equity as well. Why are these aspects so critical?
Well, when we think about it in the bigger picture, I think it's a recognition that our nutritional needs, they're not static. They change throughout our lives, right? From infancy to childhood to adulthood, older age. There are even specific considerations during times like pregnancy, lactation.
Right, so it's not one size fits all.
Exactly. And then the emphasis on health equity.
Yeah.
There's really acknowledging that factors like socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, culture, these can have a huge impact on a person's access to nutritious food, their ability to follow these dietary recommendations.
So it's about trying to make these guidelines more inclusive, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. More inclusive and more tailored to the reality of people's lives.
Okay, so we've talked about the big picture guidelines,
Yeah.
but now let's zoom in a little bit
Okay.
and talk about some of the specific nutritional trends that are really gaining traction, as we look ahead to 2025.
Yeah.
And one that keeps popping up, it seems like everywhere we look, is personalized nutrition.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is a big one.
It really is. And it used to feel kind of like this futuristic concept, but it's becoming a reality.
It is, yeah.
And a lot of that is being driven by technology, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about wearable devices that can track all sorts of physiological data. We're talking about genetic testing that can offer insights into your individual predispositions.
Right.
And sophisticated AI-powered apps that can analyze all of this information and generate, these hyper-personalized dietary recommendations.
So it really does feel like we're moving beyond, just the generic one-size-fits-all advice.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a whole new world.
Now, how is artificial intelligence specifically contributing to this personalization? Like, what is AI bringing to the table?
Well, what's really amazing about AI is its ability to process, just enormous amounts of data and then identify these subtle patterns that, honestly, a human would never be able to spot.
Right.
So, for example, AI can analyze, continuous glucose monitoring data, right, from a wearable device, and then use that to provide these super specific dietary recommendations for managing blood sugar levels.
Okay.
Or it can take into account your metabolic profile, your genetic makeup, your specific health goals.
Wow.
And then generate a customized meal plan just for you.
So it's like having a personal nutritionist, I guess, in your pocket.
Yeah, kind of. And, the fact that AI is being integrated with all these devices we use every day, smartphones, smartwatches, virtual assistants, that's making this kind of personalized guidance much more accessible.
Right. It's not just this sort of, thing that's out of reach for most people.
Exactly.
Okay. Another trend that you highlighted that I think is really fascinating is the growing focus on foods that support mental health.
Right, and this feels very relevant,
It does.
given, everything that's been going on in the past few years.
Absolutely. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so there's this growing awareness of the link between, our gut health and our mental well-being,
Okay.
the gut-brain axis. And so consumers are actively seeking out functional foods, things that contain adaptogens like ashwagandha, or nootropics like lion's mane mushrooms, probiotics, which are found in fermented foods. The goal here is really to try to manage stress, reduce anxiety, maybe even enhance cognitive function.
It's amazing to think that, what we eat can have such a direct impact on how we feel emotionally.
It is. It really is.
Okay. Let's talk about alternative proteins and sustainable eating, because this seems to be a trend that's really gaining momentum.
It is.
And it's, I think, fueled by a combination of health consciousness and a growing concern for the environment.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely a growing concern about the environmental footprint of traditional animal agriculture,
Right.
and that's a big driver here. And so we're seeing all sorts of innovations in areas like cultivated meat, proteins that are produced through fermentation,
Okay.
even insect-based protein. And beyond that, I think consumers are just becoming more aware of, where their food comes from, how it's produced.
Right.
They're looking for brands that are committed to things like regenerative agriculture, ethical sourcing,
So transparency,
transparency, absolutely.
sustainability, all of that.
Yeah,
Okay, now the plant-based market itself, it's becoming much more sophisticated, right?
it is, yeah.
It's not just about basic meat substitutes anymore.
It's not just the veggie burgers of the past.
Exactly. Exactly. So what are some of the key things that you're seeing there?
Well, one thing is that, there's a real focus on cleaner ingredient lists.
Okay.
More recognizable, more natural ingredients.
Right.
We're also seeing a wider variety of plant protein sources.
Mm-hmm.
So things like pea protein, chickpea protein, lentil protein, fava bean protein. These are becoming a lot more common.
Yeah.
And I think companies are really putting a lot of effort into improving the taste, the texture, the overall culinary experience.
That's key because ultimately, they're driven by taste.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If it doesn't taste good, they're not going to eat it no matter how healthy it is.
Exactly. You can have the most nutritious food in the world,
Yeah.
but if it's not appealing, you're not going to, you're not going to want to eat it.
You're not going to stick with it.
No,
Okay, so taste and texture, very important.
definitely.
Another interesting shift that I've noticed is in snacking.
Yeah.
How we approach snacking. And it seems like we're moving away from purely indulgent treats to more nutritious options.
Right. And this is really a reflection of our, kind of increasingly busy lifestyles.
Right.
We're all on the go, but we're also becoming more health conscious.
Right. So we want something quick, but we don't want to completely derail our health goals.
Exactly, yeah. And so these smart snacks are, they're nutrient dense, they're often portion controlled. Some of them even have added vitamins, superfoods, things like that.
Okay, so it's about making healthy choices easier.
Right. And convenient.
Convenient.
Yeah.
Okay, and then finally on the nutrition front, we're seeing gut health really taking center stage in the conversation around overall well-being.
Yeah, and this is really fascinating because we're learning so much about the gut microbiome
We are.
and how it impacts, just so many aspects of our health, our immune system, our metabolism,
Mm-hmm.
even our mental and emotional health.
It's incredible.
It really is. And so this is leading to, a lot of interest in things like prebiotics, probiotics, postbiotics, fermented foods,
Mm-hmm.
kimchi, kombucha.
Right. And that's only going to continue, right?
Oh, absolutely. This research is still, pretty early stages. So as we learn more, I think this area is just going to explode.
Okay, so that was a really comprehensive overview of the nutritional landscape for 2025.
Yeah.
But now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about fitness. What kind of training trends can we expect to see in the coming year?
All right, let's do it.
And here too, technology seems to be playing a really transformative role.
Oh, absolutely. AI, wearables, they're changing everything about how we approach fitness.
In what ways?
Well, for one thing, we've got all these AI-powered personal training apps, virtual group fitness platforms
Mm-hmm.
that can offer these incredibly personalized workout programs.
Yeah.
And the programs can adapt, based on your individual needs, your progress, your goals.
Okay.
And then wearables are becoming so sophisticated. They're providing real-time data on everything from your heart rate and activity levels to your sleep patterns.
It's
It is. And that allows for much more precise and effective training. And then you've got this whole data-driven fitness trend
Okay.
where people are really using metrics to understand how their bodies respond to exercise.
So it's not just about, going to the gym and sweating anymore.
It's not just about going through the motions.
Right.
It's about understanding what's happening, how your body's reacting.
So it's about being smarter about your workouts.
Exactly.
Okay. So it really does sound like, having this personalized, almost like a virtual fitness coach is becoming a reality for a lot of people.
It really is, yeah.
Okay. We're also seeing this rise in hybrid fitness models.
Yeah.
So what exactly does that entail?
So hybrid fitness is basically about combining, the best of both worlds.
Okay.
You get the convenience of working out at home, but you also get the benefits of in-person sessions at a gym or a studio.
Right. So it's about having options.
Options and flexibility. And this really took off during the pandemic, of course.
It did.
But it seems like it's here to stay.
Right. Because people, they like the flexibility
They do.
of being able to work out, whenever they want, wherever they want.
Right. But they also still value that sense of community,
Hmm.
and maybe the specialized equipment that you can only find at a gym.
Right. So it's finding that balance.
Exactly.
Now, with all this talk of technology, it's kind of reassuring to see that some of the fundamental fitness principles are still very much in play.
Right.
And strength training, for example, that continues to be a major trend.
Yeah. It's not going away anytime soon.
It's not. And why is that? I mean, is it just about, building muscle, aesthetics, or is there more to it?
There's definitely more to it. We're understanding more and more that strength training is really crucial for overall physical health, mental well-being, maintaining bone density as we age.
Right.
It can even contribute to longevity.
Wow. So it's really a foundational aspect of fitness.
It really is, yeah.
Okay, and then mirroring the trends we're seeing in nutrition, the connection between exercise and mental health is also a big focus.
Yeah, this is huge.
Yeah.
We're finally recognizing that exercise isn't just about, the physical benefits.
Right.
It's a powerful tool for managing stress, elevating mood, reducing anxiety.
So it's about feeling good, not just looking good.
Exactly, yeah. And this is one reason why, mind-body practices like yoga and Pilates are so popular.
Makes sense.
They really emphasize that connection between the physical and the mental.
Right. It's that holistic approach again.
Exactly.
Now, another big trend that I think is really important is the increased emphasis on recovery.
Oh, yeah. This is huge.
It is. It's not just about pushing harder and harder anymore.
It's not.
It's about recovering smarter.
Exactly. Rest and recovery are essential for optimizing performance, preventing injuries.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing, even dedicated recovery studios popping up.
Really?
Yeah, that offer things like ice baths, compression therapy, percussive massage, things that help the body repair and adapt.
So it's about recognizing that our bodies need time to rebuild, to recover.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the specific workout styles and equipment that are evolving. We've talked about yoga and Pilates.
Right.
But HIIT is still a big one, right?
Oh, yeah. HIIT is still very
It's
popular.
high-intensity interval training.
Right.
And it's evolving as well.
It is, yeah.
Wow.
We're seeing it being integrated with strength training more and more.
Okay.
Pilates is also becoming more dynamic,
Okay.
more accessible to a wider range of fitness levels.
Mm-hmm.
Functional fitness, which is all about, movements that mimic everyday activities.
Right.
That's also having a resurgence. And then there's, a renewed interest in low-impact training and just traditional cardio.
Okay, so there's really a wide range of options out there for people.
That really is, yeah. Something for everyone.
To suit different needs, different preferences. Now, what about fitness equipment? What kind of innovations can we expect to see there?
Well, a lot of the innovation in equipment is really focused on enhancing the user experience and providing more data-driven insights. So we're seeing more smart connected equipment that can track all sorts of performance metrics.
Okay.
Seamless integration with fitness apps and wearables.
Right.
The demand for compact, multifunctional home gym equipment is still strong.
Makes sense.
Sustainability is also becoming a big factor. People are looking for eco-friendly, ethically manufactured equipment.
Okay.
And then, for people who are looking for something a little more immersive, there are these gamified workouts that incorporate virtual reality, augmented reality.
Oh, wow. So our workouts are becoming more high-tech, more data-rich, and potentially more fun,
Yeah, potentially more fun, more engaging.
more engaging, yeah. Another trend that's really encouraging to see is this increased focus on inclusivity,
Yes.
catering to a wider range of needs, within the fitness world.
Yeah, the industry is finally recognizing that, one size doesn't fit all.
Right.
And so we're seeing a lot more programs and classes that are tailored to specific age groups, abilities, health conditions.
So it's about making fitness accessible and effective for everyone,
Exactly.
regardless of, where they're starting from.
Right.
Okay, and then let's circle back to personalized training, because this seems to be a recurring theme. How are AI, wearables, and online coaching platforms, how are they all coming together to really transform this landscape?
So AI is allowing for the creation of these dynamic, highly customized workout plans that can adapt in real time based on your progress, your recovery, all sorts of biometric data that's being collected.
Okay.
Wearables are providing that constant feedback loop, giving you insights into, how your body's responding.
Right.
And then online fitness coaching and all these digital platforms, they're breaking down geographical barriers.
That's right.
So personalized fitness guidance is becoming much more accessible and in many cases more affordable.
Okay, so it's really becoming easier than ever to get a tailored fitness plan, track your progress, regardless of where you live or what your budget is. Now, throughout this deep dive, it's become pretty clear that these nutrition and fitness trends, they're not happening in isolation.
They're not.
How do they intersect? How
Yeah.
do they reinforce each other, as we strive for this optimal well-being?
Well, I think, again, it's about that big picture thinking, right?
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that nutrition and fitness, they're deeply interconnected.
They are.
What you eat provides the fuel for your workouts. It plays a huge role in recovery.
Right.
But then, exercise can influence your appetite, your metabolic rate, your nutrient needs.
So it's a two-way street.
Exactly. It's a two-way street.
Mhm.
And so, taking an integrated approach, one that considers both sides of the equation, that's really the key to achieving sustainable well-being.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into the future of health and wellness, several key themes have really emerged, haven't they?
They have, yeah.
Let's try to synthesize those key takeaways, and let's start with nutrition.
Okay, so on the nutrition front, I think the emphasis is very clearly on consuming whole, nutrient-dense foods.
Right.
The dietary guidelines really reinforces there's a big push toward plant-based options,
Mhm.
and this understanding that our individual needs, even our mental well-being, can be supported through what we eat.
Right.
And then, the updated healthy food label, that's all about making it easier to identify those beneficial choices.
Okay, so lots of positive changes happening on the nutrition side, and what about on the fitness side?
So in the fitness realm, technology is really becoming this essential tool for personalization, for progress tracking.
Mm-hmm.
The flexibility of hybrid models, that's acknowledging that we all have busy lives.
We do.
And then the continued importance of strength training, the focus on mental health and recovery. That's all part of this more holistic view of well-being.
Okay. So for you, as someone who enjoys gaining knowledge quickly and thoroughly, I think this overview has provided, a solid foundation for understanding what's happening in health and wellness.
I hope so.
And, whether you're looking to refine your own habits, better understand the information that's out there, just, satisfy your curiosity about what's coming next, these are the trends to watch.
Agreed.
And the increasing personalization, in both nutrition and fitness, driven by data, by technology, I mean, that suggests that the approaches are becoming more tailored, more effective for your individual needs.
It does. And it raises a pretty thought-provoking question. With this growing ability to personalize our diets, our workouts through technology, with this deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of our physical and mental health, are we on the cusp of an era where truly individualized well-being becomes not just an aspiration, but an actual reality?
Mm-hmm.
What new questions does this raise for you about your own health journey in the years to come?
And that's something for all of us to think about as we move forward. So thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive,
My pleasure.
and we'll see you next time.